I'm excited to share some stories and maybe get the word out that all families have a little bit of craziness in them.
The Burn My Ass Abe Lincoln Christmas will go down in history as the most entertaining one. We'll just say that.
Do you guys remember when Dad tried to teach Mom how to ride a bike? Well, she certainly didn't know how to stop a bike because Dad put her on top of that hill.
What is it about wanting to get under your sibling's skin?
I was laughing so hard because he was freaking out so bad. He was like 11 or 12, maybe, flipping out. You ruined my dirt bike.
I mean, they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And it's like, you keep walking in trying to do the same thing where everybody starts drinking at noon. And then by 5 o'clock, everybody's mad at each other and somebody says something that pisses somebody else off. And then they're mad all night. And I think once we figured out that it's like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way.
This year, I'm not bringing green bean casserole. I'm bringing the bullet for kids to bite.
Hey there, fellow rebels. Welcome to #ActuallyICan, the podcast where we say a hearty hell yes to designing life on our own terms. I'm Katie Ripp, a lifestyle coach, business mentor, and serial entrepreneur, here to guide you through the wild ride of defying what society expects of us and embracing our authenticity. On this show, we dive deep into taboo topics like death, money, spirituality, entrepreneurship, unapologetic self-care, and personal development, all while swearing and laughing along the way. Expect down and dirty conversations, plenty of humor, and a whole lot of exploration, leaving you feeling empowered to be your truest self. Whether you're craving a good laugh, seeking unconventional self-care tips, or simply looking for some camaraderie, you've come to the right place. We only get this one short life, so buckle up and let's design yours on our own terms. Ready to dive in? Let's go!
Welcome to #ActuallyICan. My name is Katie Ripp, and I am here actually with my brother and sister, who graciously agreed to be on this podcast. It was a quick and down and dirty question like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast, with a immediate caveat of not really, I don't want to go that deep, which is cool because we're going to go into some holiday stuff and some shit our parents said. So my sister Steph lives in Colorado and is about an hour behind us right now. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep,
and she is 4 years older. So she is the first in the birth order, which we are all kind of obsessed with birth order because we are the birth order of the three. And my brother Cory lives here not too far from me and is 4 years younger than me, which makes me the proverbial middle child. And he is definitely the youngest. So welcome, Cory and Steph. If you'd like to say a couple of words about yourself and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, Steph Moore. I live in Colorado with my husband and 2 kids, and also have a stepdaughter that lives in Illinois. Yeah, I was a little hesitant because sometimes this can there's some sensitive stuff, I suppose, that every family has. But then I also adore these two and knew that, like, if we could help some people maybe laugh through the holidays, that would be worth it. Plus, it's fun. We've come full circle probably in our relationship. So to be able to be here and then laugh about a lot of this stuff is, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I never saw that happening. That would be negative, but I never thought that we would get to a point that we could kind of laugh this stuff off. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agreed for sure. And actually, we've been estranged back and forth over the years, but our sort of coming back together actually happened on a holiday on Thanksgiving. So this is appropriate that we're all back together. And if you followed me for a little while, you might have seen that we have a Kesso 3 trip that we have started to take. We just had our second annual one earlier this year. We've been on 2 cruises together and nobody has gotten shipped off
and nobody's
ship.
Fallen off or been pushed off.
Fallen would be a stretch, but no one's gotten pushed off. So it's been amazing, actually. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys being on here. So thanks, Steph. Cory?
Yeah. Yes, I am Cory. I am Katie and Steph's little brother. I live in the Madison area with my 2 boys and my girlfriend. I'm recently divorced, and my sisters mean the world to me. I've had a rough couple of years recently, and their support has been great. We've had a lot of reconnection over these last couple of years, and I'm actually excited to talk a little bit about our family experience through the holidays. We have some interesting ones. We have a great, interesting family dynamic, and like Steph said, making some people laugh will bring me a little bit of joy over the holidays here. So I'm excited to share some stories and maybe get the word out that all families have a little bit of craziness in them.
Yeah, I mean, just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah. And I think both Steph and I have, behind your back and to your face, Cory, have just really expressed how proud we are of you, of the ways that you have dealt with some of this really challenging situations you've gone over the last couple of years. So we are both extremely proud of you and proud to be your sisters and just watch this from the outside. It's been amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Aw, kitty. Okay, so we had originally thought, and we will likely do this because we are 70s, 80s kids. So Steph, we'll just be real honest about our ages here, right? So Steph was born in 74. I was born in 78. Cory was born in 83. So you can imagine what kind of lives we've had from then until now, right? Like the no seat belts, banana seat bikes, no helmets. Poor Steph and I were mistaken as boys all the time because her mother was a hairdresser and she was like, you know how like shoemakers' children never have shoes? We never had the cool haircuts. Very often. I will never forget.
I think like we tried to have the cool haircuts, but it was like 40 something women haircuts while we were in fourth grade.
Or 12-year-old boy haircuts.
Whatever.
Whatever was happening at Glenn's is what you guys got.
I will never forget riding our bikes one day, and this woman, you maybe don't remember this, but we were on Old Zuck Road, and Steph and I were sitting like in the gravel waiting for another biker to go by, and she goes, "Oh, you two are really cute boys." And Steph was like, "We are not boys." But we had these like bowl cuts, and then Cory got everything. You know, he had all the like haircuts and the gel and everything.
Yep.
He still has good hair.
He still has really great hair. Yeah, he's got the greatest hair.
Well, shout out to Marissa Copier at Salon Lolabella.
Agreed. She's the one that allowed me to go gray too. Okay, so originally I had thought, let's go through some of these 70s, 80s sayings that our parents said to us, and our mother and dad were the royalty of these sayings. We're going to go through some of that. But also we thought, as we started talking here, even before we started recording, we thought, oh, we've got some real holiday stories. One of them Steph brought up, and this one being, I think, the most hilarious one to Cory and I. It's probably taken Steph quite a few more years to think that it's funny than it was actually at the time. But Cory and I thought it was very funny at the time. So I have a very blurred memory of it because for sure I was drunk.
And I don't remember a lot of it.
I mean, also it was a very long time ago, but also I was very drunk.
It is the epitome of like we have a lot of competitiveness in very like unique ways though, right? Like all of us are very competitive, but in very different ways. And I just remember it being a very, very intense competitive Trivial Pursuit game. That's all I could, like, it was very intense. Everybody was really wanted to be right.
Yeah, well, I'd like to set the scene a little bit. I can't remember exactly what our ages were. I was around 20 or 21 years old. So
that makes sense. Was Dale around? Yes, Dale was at this one. So I would have been like 20.
Was Luke there too?
Luke was there, and this was maybe the second time I ever met Luke. It could be the first, but it was very early on.
Okay, so it would have been 2004 then, Christmas of 2004.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
And yes, I think it was Christmas, maybe Christmas Eve. We had all gathered at Mom's house. We had a beautiful dining area. We had a fantastic afternoon, which included a lot of Carlo Rossi wine. Somebody brought a jug of wine, or maybe that was Mom who bought a jug of that cheap Carlo Rossi red wine. And I'm pretty sure that you two
were not super picky about that.
So. Yes. I'm pretty sure that you two had put a pretty good dent in that jug. And after our meal concluded, we had a great meal, and we started playing Trivial Pursuit, as we were known to do around the holidays.
Because we're such a game night family.
Right. Well, we were such a game night family that the questions for Trivial Pursuit were at least 40 years old.
Oh yeah, Mom refused to get the new one. So it was like the original Genius edition, right?
Yes.
We had played it so many times, everybody knew the answers because they'd memorized them.
Except Cory.
So it was quite the scene. I think we all had teams. I think it was Katie and Dale, Luke and Steph, and then Mom and I.
Which made Dale want to scratch his eyes out.
Yes. Yeah, so we were playing the game. And somewhere along the way, there was some compete entered the chat. And Steph and Luke were, I think, beating everybody because Luke's like a trivia genius. And
well, he's just a genius.
Yes. And so somehow it came up that Steph said that she was very smart too.
Which, by the way, Steph was teaching 5th grade at this time.
Yeah, I was smarter than a 5th grader.
I'm pretty sure she mentioned that.
And I had just gotten out of basic training. And let's see, if this was 2004, I had already been back from Kuwait, which meant that I was smarter than an 8th grader because the Army is built on 8th grade education. So at least I was as smart as an 8th grader.
Yeah. So noticing the situation, I don't believe that I had been drinking too heavily that day. I probably was hungover from the night before, but I think at some point it came up. We got in this little tiff about Steph being smarter than everybody, something along those lines. And I said, okay, since you are smarter than a 5th grader, who shot Abraham Lincoln? This wasn't a board game question. This was just kind of a side bet, if you will. And at that moment, Stephanie's newly minted fiance started singing the Jeopardy theme. And
nothing like throwing gas on a fire.
And I can see Dale's smile just starting to pick up. It starts just...
he's like rubbing his hands together in his mind. Like,
as time goes on. And, poor Steph under pressure just completely blanks out. Well, Luke holds up his imaginary buzzer and goes, meep, John Wilkes Booth. It could be explained as a tirade after that. Steph lost it. She got very angry. Mom was trying to keep the peace. Oh, Steph screamed across the table, "You burn my ass." Like screaming it to me in my face.
I meant to say, kiss my ass.
Makes no sense.
I meant to say, kiss my ass. I was under so much pressure with the Jeopardy song. Yeah, my recall was not on point that day.
At that moment.
For years, I mean, because we are not super nice, behind her back, we would be like, burn my ass.
Oh, no, you guys do it right to my face. Don't think you
Well, I know, but we didn't do it for a while in front of you because you were still so mad.
I know.
Yeah, it was a moment.
Super smart stuff.
Yes.
In my own mind, I'm really smart.
Oh, it was a good
one.
No,
it was. I am glad that we can laugh about it at this point because it was just yes, it was like, it's like, I'm sure that most people have there's just this kind of tipping point. You anticipate holidays. And when things are not in a good place and then you're stressed out and you go to a holiday thing, then all of a sudden it could have had something to do with the jug of wine though.
Well, certainly.
Maybe. Certainly. Just maybe.
Certainly it played a part. We'll just say that.
Yes.
Because I can say we've had subsequent holidays without the jugs of wine that have not ended this way.
That's true.
Although we have spawned a bunch of very competitive children that are, last year we did the money ball, right?
Yes. Which I didn't do.
And Monopoly.
And Monopoly. Yeah. But the money ball, where, again, we're not really a game board family, but for some reason we decide that it's a good idea to do games among now 14 competitive people. And so we tried to all stand around Steph's island with a money ball, which, if you're not familiar with the money ball, basically you roll up saran wrap with lottery tickets and cash, right?
Yep.
Then on the island, everybody's standing around the island, and then one person has to roll dice while the other person is unrolling. And then when they shoot doubles, right, the ball passes. So you have to try and unroll as much as you can so you can get the lottery tickets and the money and whatever. Well, the first two people ended up with all the things, right? Wasn't it like it took forever to get the doubles?
It took forever to get the doubles, and I didn't do it in short enough. When you wrap it, you need to wrap it in small pieces of saran wrap, like little pieces. And I did it like more as a wrap because I thought it would be easier for the kids, and they just
it was easier.
It was way too easy because then we had that was
So then no good, it didn't get all the way around. And then we had to go and, of course,
basically pay the kids off. Just start handing them money.
We had to basically just
fine. Everybody gets money. Fine.
Shut up. We're done. Do we have another holiday one?
Well, the washing machine, but that was more of a kind of
also jugs of wine. This is in a different house. We are also maybe sitting around playing Trivial Pursuit or just smoking cigarettes and drinking. That could be.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think we were playing a game, but we were all up on these stools. My mom had like a
stool island. Yep.
Yeah. And we were on stools and we were all sitting there forever with our feet up on the stools. And one of us stood up and the washing machine had leaked. There was like an inch of water on the floor.
Yeah. And we just were all oblivious to it too. Just everywhere.
Water was everywhere. And it was like nobody was in the mood to deal with it on Christmas Eve. But yeah.
Oh, and then the heat. Cory, you may not remember this step, but Cory, do you remember when the heat went out the year that mom and dad got separated and the heat went out on Christmas Day at our house, our brand new house?
30 below or something.
It was like 20 degrees in the house. Like everything started to frost over. It was a really ugly time.
Yeah, it was bad.
I was only 14 then.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. There was no medication for that. Yeah. We've had our fair share. Let's just say that. Like everybody has, right? Well, I just turned 46. So I've had 45 Christmases and all of them with some sort of drama or situation.
I think.
No, not all of them, but like every year has some sort of something that goes along with it. That at least makes it memorable.
I think that everybody goes through
yes.
I mean, there's a reason you see all the Instagram memes of take care of yourself in the holiday season. And I mean, holidays are stressful. It just,
for sure.
I mean, they're stressful and they're, it's hard.
Yeah. I think in the end, it's just really hard to please everybody. And
maybe that's what it is.
You just can't please everybody. It just doesn't make sense to try anymore. So I think that's probably why we have such nice holidays now. Is everybody's kind of put up their boundaries and everybody really sort of respects what everybody else does. And we try to get together when we can. And if it doesn't work out because of family issues, it just doesn't work out.
And I think the more boundaries that you healthily put up, not boundaries because you're angry or boundaries, but real true boundaries where it's that's just not going to work for me or whatever. The more willing you are to kind of put the effort in, because you can put the effort into the pre-boundary.
Yeah. And the things that really matter, right? The things that really matter. I think as we get older too, we realize some of the things just don't matter that much anymore. Like the gifts, trading of gift cards. It just doesn't make sense for us anymore. I mean, the kids like to do it and the kids like to exchange gifts and stuff, and that's fine. But for us adults, it just doesn't make sense. I'd rather go for a hike together.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd rather spend the money to get together. So anyway, holidays are holidays. We don't need to dig into that anymore. But the burn my ass Abe Lincoln Christmas will go down in history.
For sure.
As the most entertaining one. We'll just say that.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. And I like to think of the holidays now as, just the growth of everybody. I mean, there's actual growth, right? Our kids are getting older, and some of those things, we aren't putting as much pressure on ourselves on Christmas to create this great, memorable experience. And now I feel like I'm just letting it happen more so. And that takes some of the pressure off, which then opens up more space for us, things like get-togethers and just kind of going with the flow rather than trying to create something that puts so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah. And really just being who you are. And if you like to decorate and that's your thing, then by all means do it, but do it for yourself. Do it because you love it. And if you don't, that's okay too. Just don't apologize for it. You are who you are, and it's okay to be that way. And we also come from a divorced family, right? So Our parents got divorced when I was 14, Cory was 9, and Steph was in college. And so for quite a few years, we had to share holidays. And Cory, I know you're going through that now, and lots and lots and lots of people that are going to listen to this, my tens of followers are going to listen to this and realize like they're also in that same boat, right? Like we have to, and it was really important for our mom for a while to have Christmas Day. And it was more of a, like, did it matter to really have Christmas Day? To her, it did. It did matter to her. So the rest of us sort of had to shift. And it's gotten, obviously, as we've gotten older, it's gotten a lot better. But sometimes it's hard to like let go of those exact things, right? Like the exact day or the exact thing that you have to have for that tradition or whatever it is. So I think really just being flexible and realizing that, yes, you can have the things you want, but also have to be respectful of other people. It's just a lot of people to deal with.
And I think it's a sign of our like times. I mean, I get that like the day mattered, but it also mattered 50 years ago when everybody lived in a 5-mile radius of each other. And now it's hard to get together. I mean, one of the things that's hardest about living far away is it's hard to get home without planning it. Right. I mean, when I was 5 or 6 hours away, I could just jump in the car and go. Now it's either a 2-day drive or it's like, you got to plan a flight, you got to do all that. So, and then kids just are so busy, so I think just if I had any advice for people, it's just like, be easy on yourself. Like, I know you want to try to do it all. I mean, there was one year when we lived in Nashville, we drove in a matter of like 6 days, I think we drove from Nashville to Champaign to Madison and back to Nashville. And I mean, it's 12 hours maybe from Madison to Nashville. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, we had, 2 little kids and the dog and packing up Christmas presents and all that. And I remember getting home and not feeling rested, like not feeling like I had had a few days off or I had, and I'm like, okay, that was a little crazy. We're not going to do that again. Cause it was just too much.
Yeah, we had that same situation when we lived in Bayfield, right? We would come down and then we would go to 4 different Christmases, right? Like Dale's parents had their extended families that we went to their extended families. Then we had Christmas Eve. Then we had to go to mom's. Then we had to see dad and we saw you guys and whatever. And all of a sudden I like got back to Bayfield and I was like, that was horrible. It wasn't like that the holiday was horrible. I was just like that. I got nothing out of it really, except pleasing everybody else. And so we put a hard boundary down and I was like, listen, if you guys want to come for Christmas, you got to come here. And at one point or another, you're going to have to put the boundary down. You're going to have to say, like, lay something down and know you're going to disappoint some people. But if it makes sense to them and if it's worth it for them to see you, they will come.
Yep.
Period. So, yeah. Okay. So here are some of the sayings that I found that our parents definitely said to us. And some of the possibly politically incorrect also things. So I'm sure that when I say these out loud, you guys are going to, well, I'd love if you like remember a story about some of these because I certainly do. Okay. Don't make me pull this car over. This one brings up a memory of Steph, if you don't want me to tell the story, I could cut it.
I don't remember it. I mean, I don't know where you're going.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that we pulled the car over. And this was after we were coming home from Spooner and Wendy and Shannon were with us and they were dropping me off at Camp Gray and the boat came unattached, but you were in such trouble already. Do you remember? Like,
yes,
mom and dad made you ride with dad on the way home and the boat came unhooked on the interstate.
Yes, I was in a lot of trouble because I had chosen to attend a beach party in northern Wisconsin.
Beach
quote unquote beach party, and decided to get into some old Milwaukee. So
quite a bit.
Well, not actually, because it was like
you were weren't you like 15?
Maybe 16. I think I was 16.
Oh, were you driving?
Yeah. I wasn't driving yet, but I was going to be 16, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, we had been driving around. My friends were with me. We took them up. Had been driving around in Spooner and met some of the local high school
Talent.
boys,
The local talent.
the local talents.
Who,
And
by the way, I'm still friends with on Facebook.
yeah, oh, I am too. Yeah, yeah, still friends. It was a progressively, like, I think I only had like 3 beers, but
Yeah.
I probably weighed 80 pounds. And it was again, a blur. But my mom and dad were really, really mad at me. And yeah, we got invited to this fun.
It wasn't really because of the party. It was because of what you said to mom.
Oh, I don't remember what I said to mom.
Don't you remember sitting in the recliner and you're like, shut up, mom?
Oops.
I remember you like rocking back and forth, drunk.
Yeah.
Wendy and Shannon. It was Wendy and Shannon, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're with you. My mom looked at Steph, knowing full well what was wrong. She was like, "What's wrong with you?" Steph looks at her and goes, "Shut up, mom." Oh, like, we didn't say shut up in our house when we were kids.
Yeah, we couldn't tell our parents to shut up. Apparently, I had
No.
Apparently, I took liquid courage that night.
Shut up, mom. And she her head just about spun off her body. It was hilarious. Yeah. So then you had to ride home with dad.
I had to ride home.
And then it wasn't that he wanted to pull the car over. It was that the boat came unleashed on the interstate, drug along the interstate on the chains of the
I don't remember that. Like, I didn't remember that happening, but yeah,
he was already so mad. And then,
yeah,
Mad Steve is not a.
Yeah.
Okay. So sibling sayings, you're adopted. We told Cory he was adopted all the time. Also, we put Cory this is a few people's favorite story. We used to put Cory, Steph and I put Cory in a vinyl suitcase.
Or like nylon, right? Because it was super.
Yeah, it was like nylon. Yeah, I don't even remember what it was.
It was navy blue and nylon. I remember.
It was a nylon, but it was like a matching set. Our parents, like the luggage that they used to travel with. And we put him on the top of the stairs, told him to get in it, and then we slid him down a flight of stairs on it, and then just left him at the bottom of the stairs.
Well, you zipped me in the suitcase. We should clarify that the suitcase was.
We just didn't throw you down the stairs. We did make sure you were protected inside the suitcase. Oh, is that that's not the angle you were going for?
I mean, I think of that now, and I'm like, there's a lot of times in my life at this point, at 50 years old, you finally say like, damn, there are a lot of times that like I should not. I mean, when you look at what the protective gear and stuff that kids, like I remember riding down behind we were in Cherrywood and we were going down to the pond and I was following a girl from my class on bikes and we got going down this hill and she put on her brakes and I didn't know that. And so like I hit the back of her tire. I mean, we were cruising down a hill and flew off the bike, right? Had big cut.
No helmet.
No helmet. No. Like I'm thinking to myself, like, all I can see now, like if my kids were throwing each other down the stairs in suitcases and then and mind you, the basement, the floor at the bottom of the stairs was like, it had linoleum.
Concrete.
It was concrete because it was the basement stairs, but it had like linoleum over it. But that was it. I mean, now I'm like.
And also we just left him there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nylon.
I may have some claustrophobia residue. And I do remember one time you two were watching me and mom must have been at the grocery store or something. But she came home to me.
She was at Claude's.
Yes. Or Kickapoo Grocery. But yeah, she came home to me at the bottom of the stairs just begging for somebody to let me out. And
who knows what we were doing? We were what the hell? Who knows what we were doing?
I'm sorry, Cory.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, through great pressure comes growth, right? So I'm a pretty tolerant person now. To a point.
Man, holy cow.
Oh my God.
This just popped into my brain when you were talking about riding bikes down hills. Do you guys remember, was it mom, when dad tried to teach mom how to ride a bike?
Oh, and
on that yellow 10 speed?
Well, I think she knew how to ride a bike, but she didn't know how to do like the gears or whatever.
Well, she certainly didn't know how to stop a bike because dad put her on top of that hill.
She didn't know how to stop it.
At Old Sock Road. So there was that hill in our front yard and it was a fairly long hill. And then there was a rock wall right at the end of it, like 2 feet high. And I remember he put her on that bike and she went scooting down the hill and did not know how to stop the bike and went straight into the rock wall.
Oh, she was seething
Just
mad.
over the handlebars, like OTB.
Yeah. She never got on a bike again.
Never got on a bike.
Do you
again.
blame her?
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
and then when Katie tried to ride my dirt bike. Yeah, so it was after mom and dad
this
got
is another
divorced.
one of those, I'm right. I love to be right. Everybody knows I love to be right. And I don't need any help. So Cory got a brand new dirt bike.
Oh, I do. I remember hearing about it. I wasn't there, but
yeah, brand new dirt bike. Before he even got the chance to get on it, I was like, oh,
I got this.
I got this. And Dad's like, it's got a clutch. And I was like, I know how to fucking drive a clutch. I'm good.
I've been on four-wheelers all my life.
I've been on four-wheelers all my life. He gets it out of the trailer. I, kickstart the thing or whatever it is. It's running. I pop the clutch and go straight into a rock wall.
Up a rock wall. The whole thing did a backflip.
Also, no helmet, no protective gear.
You're very lucky it didn't come on top.
I am laughing so hard.
Did Cory just lose his mind?
Oh, yeah.
Lost his ever-loving mind. I was laughing so hard because he was freaking out so bad. He was like 11 or 12, maybe. Flipping out. You ruined my dirt bike. I mean, flipping out. And Dad is also laughing because he's like, well.
I mean, it's a dirt bike. It's going to get ridden pretty hard.
Right.
But he had just gotten it. I didn't even let him get on it.
He was pulling it off the trailer when you popped
I got this. So I also haven't ridden a dirt bike since. But Dale really loves that story. He thinks it's really funny. He was certainly not there. I was in high school, but I got it.
I got this. You just you grabbed that throttle and just ripped. The tires started spinning when he popped that clutch, and it crawled up that rock wall 10 feet high.
I mean, I'm on so many levels. I'm glad I'm still alive.
You're lucky it didn't fall back on top of you and crush you.
Yeah. I mean, well, also Steph and I, when we were little, were riding a four-wheeler on sand dunes. I'm sorry, I take that back. We were riding a three-wheeler on sand dunes, flipped it. We were absolutely, I don't know how much luckier we couldn't have been that both of our legs didn't burn off from the hot muffler that didn't have a
I know, that was right underneath there. And we slid down the side of the
sand dunes into a pond. And I think, Steph, you got maybe out of it. And then we both remember Dad running. And he's like Mario. He's got these short little legs.
I've never seen anyone run so fast in my life, though. Holy crap.
See, he really does love us. He pulled that thing off of us.
I remember
that thing was gone. That was gone within days of that. And we went to four-wheelers after that because that was a bad. Yeah. And I just tried to turn around on the top of the sand dune and it was just so dry that I think we tipped and then we just slid down the side of the sand. Yeah, it was scary.
In burning hot sand.
Yes. Yeah.
And we were like, God, Cory must have been 2.
I actually remember
Steph was
that.
8. Oh, so maybe you were 3 or 4.
Yeah.
We were not old enough to be driving 1,000-pound three-wheeler with a exposed muffler.
Well,
but
I think we would have been fine had we not been on a
just
sand dune.
Watching the whole
we
thing.
would have been fine. Yes, had we not been on a sand dune.
I know.
Oh,
crazy.
So anyway, if we're making you feel better about your life, it was a whole
I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah, that is the goal here. So we're doing a good job so far. So I have, again, originally we had thought, let's find some sayings and shit that our parents said that really would not be appropriate these days. One of the things that came up was Ring Around the Rosie, which people still use this as a nursery rhyme. But do we know what Ring Around the Rosie is from?
So you talked about this in one of your podcasts once, I think.
Oh, possibly. I'm sure we did.
And I remember that it is something very inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. A ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. It may sound like a very sweet rhyme, except it's about the Black Plague. And rosy refers to the rash. Posies were the herbs to ward off the disease. And ashes symbolize cremation.
What a beautiful thing to teach a 4-year-old.
And we all fall down as the death.
So let's turn this disease into a banger for the kids.
Well, I mean, I remember jump roping, and this probably is what contributed to my obsession with crime, true crime, is the jump rope Lizzie Borden gave her mother
Yes,
50
that's
whacks.
also on here.
I mean, like I'm thinking about that, and I was like, I mean, I remember being at West Middleton jumping rope and like singing that, thinking like,
Yes, because it was like our mother's favorite
like
nursery rhyme,
well,
which
they were
was
doing
not
it
a
at Catholic
nursery
school
rhyme.
in like
Lizzie
1955.
Borden. Yes, so if you're not familiar with this, if you were born after 1985, Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
Then you have to count your jumps.
Yes, to hopefully get to 41, I guess. So this is the Lizzie Borden murders of 1892. This was like our mother's favorite story. I don't know why, but she was actually tried and acquitted for killing her parents with an axe. There's a movie coming out. Is this right?
Well, there's a movie with Christina Ricci on like Netflix or something. And
oh yes,
I mean,
Mom loves.
It's actually one of my bucket list items to go to the Borden house. But people are pretty sure it's her. But I mean, there's possibilities out there too that it wasn't. I don't know. That's a whole other podcast probably. But anyway, I'm just thinking to myself though, like the fact that girls at a Catholic school in like 1955 are jumping rope to that at St. Bernard's Catholic School is just intriguing, right? Like what? I mean, and a pocket full of posies.
Who thought this was a good idea? What was the other one that I saw that was?
Well, the skin a cat one is the one that gets me all the time.
And on the same plane with skin the cat is skin the bunny rabbit.
Yeah, right. Like, yes.
These are two very specific. They're very different though. So there's more than one way to skin a cat means there's more than one way to do something.
Yeah.
But also, why are we skinning cats?
Yeah.
And also, why is there more than one way?
So let's recap this all.
Let's break it down.
So let's recap. We've got a serial, or not a serial killer. Well, she is a serial killer. I guess she killed two
She kills more than one person. I think she's a serial
killer. So we've got a serial killer, the Black Plague, and mutilating animals.
Yes. We wonder why we have fucked up Christmas. Yes. So more than one way to skin a cat. The meaning of it is there's multiple ways to achieve a goal. Okay. So I got it. What was the other one that I was looking up? Oh, so like skin the bunny rabbit. So this is the phrase that our parents used to give us when we were taking off our clothes to put our pajamas on. Yeah. So like put your arms all the way up so we can take your shirt off.
Time to skin the bunny rabbit.
I know, it's
like,
just
what the
it's
fuck?
Just, yeah, it's very messed up. I mean, I'm sure that hopefully there's other people that had that experience. I mean, Midwest people, maybe. I don't know.
Steph, wasn't it you that mentioned that you did that to one of the, like Finn when he was very young, and Luke looked at you like, what are you telling our son?
No, I think he knew that one. There was something that I used one time and he looked at me and he was like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, I don't remember which one. I don't know if it was that one or not. I'll have to ask him.
So Miss Mary Mac was one of our mother's, also one of her favorite nursery rhymes. So Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black. Well, she's saying it, which I cannot sing it because I am tone deaf like she is. So Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black with silver buttons all down her back. So Mom would do this, right? Do you remember she had the clapping thing, like the big whatever.
Well, I remember her and Mimi Nelson doing it.
Yeah. So what were those things called? Like the
patty cake
things. Well, I know, but yeah, so I don't know what they were called, but like a patty cake where you're clapping hands.
Well, we had the Big Mac one when we were like,
oh yeah, I can still do that. So Miss Mary Mac, the rhyme's origins are debated, but it might have been about a mourning outfit.
Which
so like
makes sense.
Yeah, hence all black for funerals. A Civil War cannon. Mary Mac was a cannon in the Civil War, like an black ironclad. And like, what's the deal with her buttons? Like silver buttons all down her back. Like, who was doing the buttoning? Like a straitjacket? Or
all those old like colonial dresses had like buttons all down the back,
I guess. Okay. Oh, I see London, I see France.
Oh yeah.
Like, how inappropriate. Like,
yeah, that one's just kind of
classic childhood mockery that really told the line of humiliation. Nothing says friendship like public shaming at recess. Oh.
So I looked up Bite the Bullet because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember that one. I'm not sure that you guys heard that one as much as I. And I feel like that might have been Grandpa that I heard maybe say that one more.
Oh, I definitely heard
Yeah, I
mine.
Bite the Bullet?
definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
just bite the
So,
bullet would be like,
that
like
one
get
I
it
looked
done,
up.
right?
And it's like during the Civil War and the Revolutionary Wars and stuff, they used to give soldiers bullets to bite on when they were cutting their legs off if they had been shot. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Wow.
Like, I
okay.
guess I never really paid attention to what that one was.
Yeah. So, do your ears hang low? Do you remember this one? Do your ears hang low? Do they love?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, we used to sing that. We used to sing that in school.
Yes. So some historians think this to a crude World War I soldier's song referencing anatomy. Oh, Mary, Mary, quite contrary.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this one?
I know. I mean, I don't know any of these meanings.
Well, like you've heard that one, Mary, Mary, quite
yes,
contrary. Yeah. Linked to the Mary the First of England, who was also known as Bloody Mary, and her reign of terror with the garden referring to graveyards.
Nice.
Mary, Mary, quite contrary. How does your garden grow?
Oh my God. I mean, thank the Lord that we didn't know what these all meant.
I know.
Right? I mean, now I'm like,
I know.
One that when we talked about this, that I thought of was like, oh, I'm going to read you the riot act. And that's like a old British thing that they used to like read to crowds before they would like massacre them if they weren't.
Yeah, like behead them, right?
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess ignorance.
London Bridge is falling down.
Oh, that one I did know. That
Yeah,
was
some theories suggest this is about Viking raids and child sacrifice.
Nice.
Or rebuilding the bridge over and over again.
Yikes.
Yeah. Oh, Rockabye Baby. Like a possible nod to infant mortality. Like, what the fuck? Why are we putting babies in trees? Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. Do you remember Mom always singing this to our kids?
Yeah.
I don't.
That's about the Scottish uprising and the exile of Bonnie Prince Charlie. If you've been watching Outlander, you will know what we're talking about.
Oh, no, I don't. I haven't watched Outlander.
Oh my
Isn't
God.
that quite like, isn't that kind of like romantic-y and like.
No. Have you not?
It's not like a Lifetime movie?
Oh my, Outlander?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. It's like somewhere between Braveheart and 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh.
100, like in movie form. And Jamie Fraser is possibly the most beautiful man on earth.
Oh, well, goodness, I have to watch.
You've never seen it?
Huh.
Oh my God. You watch it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all I got for sayings, really.
Hey there, listeners. It's Katie. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Female Founders Collective. I started this collective because I know firsthand how challenging it can be to build a business from the ground up. As female founders, we're balancing so much, our dreams, our families, our sanity, and it can feel pretty lonely out there. That's why the collective is all about real connection and support. We're a community of women who are sharing what works, what doesn't, and having each other's backs. So if you're looking for a network that truly gets it, come join us at the Female Founders Collective. We meet virtually every single Wednesday at noon Central Standard Time. It's always free. It will never be a charge. This is something that I am really passionate about. Come and join us. You can register by going to katierip.com.
I mean, I know we want to keep it light, but do we want to talk any more about like holidays and like the kind of what it took to, like, as funny as the emotional outbursts are, it's funny to laugh about now. Like, you know, that all roots from stress and like, or for me,
trauma.
You know, like it roots from like stressful holidays when I was a kid and things being stressful. So therefore, like, you're kind of set up to fail in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it's really just like managing expectations at this point to me.
Well, and I think too that it's like everybody wants, it's kind of like the cycle of like, you keep trying it because you want it to be better. You want it to be fun and you want it. And so you keep trying to do it. And then it just kind of always ends the same. And really until we all kind of checked our own egos and figured out that
Well, ultimately, we could do it differently.
Well, right. There was just a different way to do it. Like it wasn't, we realized that if we all just kind of let down our guards and just didn't worry about, I don't know, pleasing anybody. And then obviously you take the entire element of alcohol out of it and it just, the stress goes away because you're not waiting for anybody to lose their shit.
Which we've all done.
And I mean, I can be very blatant. Like, I mean, I probably went in drinking hard at holidays because it was just, I was uncomfortable, right? Like I didn't know it was 100%. So, but then it creates like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Fuel for a fire and I think in one way or another, we all came to that conclusion on our own, which also helps, right? Like it wasn't prescribed to us. It was, well, I mean, in my own personal experience, I just stopped trying to fit into a like quote unquote Instagram mold where like all these holidays look picture perfect or a Pinterest holiday, right? Like I don't like to cook. I mean, when I was cooking, I was drinking all morning. So by the time everything was burned at 4:00 and nobody got to eat, not only were all of us drunk, but we were also starving and hangry. Yeah. Because, I remember the last Christmas I hosted at my house. I loved the idea of having a like Christmas open house and people could come and go. And it was like amazing, except that I was so nervous. And so like I had so much anxiety around it that by the time anybody got there, I was half in the bag. Yeah. And then it just like my behavior was inappropriate or unwelcoming. And then it would just like ramp everybody up. And by the end of it, I'd go to bed or rather wake up the next morning with a huge shame over and be like, was this even fucking worth it? Yeah. And it got to a point that it wasn't worth it. It just like was not worth it. And do I miss it at all? Absolutely not. I do not miss people like puking in the bathroom, pass out on the couch, or puking and rallying, which plenty of people did. We're talking about like adults here, not like, 18-year-olds.
Yeah, I don't remember that Christmas being like that. Maybe we left before that.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was. I think Cory probably remembers that one. It wasn't. It was the last. Okay. It was the last one. It was the last Christmas I had at my house.
By then.
Yeah.
Regardless, though, I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of people out there that there is a catch-22 with holidays and families and the stress of it. And I think probably the biggest lesson that I've learned about people in general is that everybody does do the best with what they know and what they've got. Yeah. I used to hate that saying. So there's another cliche that actually, I mean, I didn't hear that growing up. That was just something that I just hated hearing that because I'm like, no, do better. But it's true. Like you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know for a long time that like I think the word triggered gets overused because I think that there's a place for it. But anyway, for lack of a better term, I didn't realize that my stress for holidays would probably start like in the morning before I even left for the place that I was going. And I was excited to go, but I was excited about what I wanted it to be, not about the reality of what it was. And so I think that once I figured out in life for myself that like there is a difference between what you want things to be, your expectations, and then the way that they really are. And when you start being really honest about that with yourself and then how you contribute to that, then everything changes. Everything changes when it's not, oh, my sister stresses me out or my mom stresses me out or my brother stresses me out. I mean, I get like the whole, well, you're allowing them to stress you out. That's true. There's a gray area there because it takes time to really process, understand, and then behave in a way that like, it just takes time to learn how to not let people affect your feelings. And maybe they are going to affect your feelings, but then to also take a breath and not react, but respond to it. So like, there's just like a whole, I mean, I guess if you have, after what I've learned through all of this, if you have a stressful time at holidays, I would suggest like getting up in the morning before you go somewhere and like take a walk by yourself or go journal or do something where you're like, okay, what are my expectations for the day? And then look back on the previous holidays and say, what's the reality probably of it? Right? Yeah. Like what's the reality of how this is maybe going to go down today? And then set some boundaries for yourself. So like, if you can't necessarily there's a boundary, of course, where you can say, I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to go.
For sure.
But I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily always dealing with it either. Like maybe it's like, and I do that too, where I'm just like, okay, well, if I'm not comfortable at the place, I'm just not going to go. Well, that's true. But why aren't you comfortable? Are you uncomfortable because of maybe the way somebody might, because there's families out there that, I mean, we joke about like the bullying type thing, but there are some families out there that there's some genuine, I've heard some stories. There is some genuine bullying going on. I mean, to the point where we're like, I mean, it's terrible. I've seen it happen, right? Visiting other families or whatever for holidays. And maybe that isn't a place that you should be. So maybe you say no, or set yourself up so you're just not even around the person that's doing it. Or if it starts to happen, have something ready to say, or go on a walk or whatever it is. I don't know. But I mean, I think that we can only control what we can control. So
Yeah.
you can control, how you respond to someone or not respond at all.
Yeah. Yeah. What you say too is like taking accountability for your place in it,
Right.
which it took me years to get there. Not only holidays, but lots of situations I was in was never my fault.
Yeah, one thing that's, worked for me, I think, really well is just setting, I mean, in my case, I've always had multiple events to go to in a single day or over a couple days. And I really like putting a deadline to say, hey, we're leaving at this time. And oftentimes you'd be able to time that when you knew certain families would start to have problems. That might be around that 3 or 4 o'clock magic hour, right? Where the lack of food plus copious amounts of alcohol start to kick in. It's like, oh, well, guys, we're on to the next Christmas. And sometimes that next Christmas didn't exist. Sometimes that next Christmas was just going home and getting back to your own place and your own space. That's been really helpful for me. And luckily, as time has gone on, I've had to use that less and less. Have evolved, I think. And
you've evolved that you just don't feel like you have to apologize, right? Like, I don't have to make an excuse. I'm just leaving. This comes from also a place of like giving yourself permission to have a new tradition. Dale's family comes from a very like deeply traditional family, and we do not, right? Like, I think we tried with tradition. And I think in our parents' defense, for years, they tried to create their own tradition because they didn't come from great ones. But that was sort of a farce a little bit too for a while. That's not, again, like they were doing the best they could with what they had. And I get that. But giving yourself permission to have your own traditions. Like, we don't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. We've come to Colorado a few times for Thanksgiving, but when we don't do that, our tradition is to do nothing. Our tradition is like the 4 of us as a family, kind of everybody gets to do what they want. We watch football together. We have appetizers. We don't make a big meal. It's just or we do pizzas on the grill or something very like non-traditional. I mean, all of us are so sick of ham and turkey. I could puke. I've had 40 years of ham and turkey and I'm done. But except Will's, like I would eat Will's stuff. But part of that is just giving yourself and your family permission to create a new tradition. You do not have to do the things that your parents did or the things that your grandparents did. We are in like new generations. You get to do the things you want to do. And just like Steph, you said, like we stopped traveling for Christmas because we were going to 50 different places and everybody was exhausted and crabby, and kind of like Christmas spirit is that. So at one point or another, you have to like give yourself permission to be like, hey, we're not coming. Like, we're going to do this ourselves. Or this year we're traveling for the first time over the holidays. That's tough for some people that have like specific traditions. And it's actually Dale's family that we're going with. And so that has typically been the traditional, we spend Christmas Eve together. We all exchange names, everybody's got a stocking and we have ham and turkey and that kind of thing. And so for them to even consider doing something different, we're traveling over Christmas, but they're coming a little bit later. But even that chunk of time in between Christmas and New Year's, that's really been typically saved for other Christmases, extended family Christmases, right? Like going to the hall or whatever it is. And giving yourself and your families and your own family permission to do something different is, I think, so powerful and empowering that you also let other people do that too. When you start to open up the idea or inspire someone like, hey, we can do this differently. Like, if they can do it that way, why can't I do it that way? It just makes everything just a little bit more pleasant to have, like, maybe even like maybe it's not lowering the expectations, but having really like realistic expectations. Just like you said, Steph, like really knowing what's actually going to happen versus like what's going on inside your head and like what you want to happen or what you've been told should happen. That to me just makes this whole month so much easier.
I mean, I think and especially as kids, you do all this thing. You get up in the morning, you open presents, you go to church, you go to my aunts or uncles or whatever. And it's like, you get set up every year to make it this big, exciting thing. And sometimes in our case, it would end with a very stressful argument, whatever. And so you get very confused as a kid because you're like, the expectation is there. And I mean, that carried through to an adulthood for us because we were like, we kept doing the same thing, right? We kept doing the same, like, oh yeah, we get together and party all afternoon on Christmas. And I'm not saying that that's wrong by any means. I know I couldn't handle it because the stress of what
I mean, our family just was not equipped to handle it. Like we didn't have the skills to do that.
Unfortunately, it just ended with everybody angry. And I mean, they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And it's like, you keep walking in trying to do the same thing where everybody starts drinking at noon. And then by 5:00, everybody's mad at each other and somebody says something that pisses somebody else off and then they're mad all night and whatever. And it's like, you'd keep trying. It's like, why do you keep trying to do it that way? I mean, we did for decades. And I think once we figured out that it's like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. Like you don't have to do it that way. If your family can go and get together and do all of that and everybody has a blast, go for it. That's awesome. More power to you. Our family could not, for whatever reason, we just were not.
Well, and individually, we all took responsibility that we couldn't do that anymore.
Well, that's true. That's true. You're right.
We all took responsibilities
right,
separately and individually that allowed us to take responsibility for our part in it, which has allowed us to come back together and be like, oh, these are the holidays that we've always really wanted that we never really got. And it's partly because none of us drink anymore.
Right.
I mean, not like we don't drink like we used to, right? Yeah. Certainly I don't drink at all, but like, and I thought it was everybody else's issue.
Right. That's what I mean is that just being accountable for like what, and even if it's not even saying it's a drinking thing, like, even if it's, do you go in and get offended by something someone says to you and then carry that with you throughout the day? Right? Because that's on
or
you.
The year.
Or you're right.
Right.
But I mean, that is your, like, if that is the case, then be super honest with yourself and say, when I walk in and Uncle Bob starts telling me that I've gained 40 pounds and I, whatever, because people do that, right? Like, I mean, I've heard it happen. If that happens, do I if I allow that to ruin the rest of my day, then maybe this year you don't go. Maybe this year it is something that you just can't. Or maybe you try to find out when Uncle Bob is going to be there and just try to make sure that you're only there for an overlap of 10 minutes when he's there.
Yeah. And that's exactly when you stepped out. That's exactly what Cory said. It's like, be very intentional about the times that you're around. You have control over your time. So if you know that Uncle Bob is coming, who's Bob? But
I don't.
If you know that Uncle Bob is coming and he's going to call you a fat ass, maybe we don't go when Uncle Bob is there, or we leave right when Uncle Bob walks in the door.
Or we get really honest with ourselves and we say, I'm going to look at Uncle Bob and just pretty much consider the source. And maybe he needs to take care of himself or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever you need to do.
Whatever. Right.
But point being,
here's the other thing is you have a choice. You have a choice on how you deal with it. If you decide you don't want to go that year, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're avoiding anything. That's just how you're going to deal with it. You're going to take responsibility for dealing with it that way that year. Maybe next year you've grown a little bit and you've done some work and
you can handle an hour.
And you can handle it and be like, fuck you, Uncle Bob, like have another drink or, whatever
and
you
that's
say
what I mean
or
is
don't say or whatever.
There's a space between reacting all the time to whatever somebody's doing. And then you have to learn how to manage it to get to a point where you respond, right? There's space between reacting and then learning how to respond. Most of the time, the first step in that is just taking a breath and not doing anything. You just don't do anything. You just don't respond. And maybe again, this year, it's not going to Christmas or not going to New Year's or whatever day it is. Or
which is a really big deal for a lot of people.
It is. I mean, I did it. What's funny, and you kind of mentioned, you kind of led into this before, but what's interesting is that the more you learn yourself and the more that you open up the honesty around yourself and the putting up your boundaries, the more flexible you become. It's just like I am a huge proponent of strict discipline in the sense of doing things that are hard. So this does not mean you have to work out for an hour and a half every single day.
No.
But if your standard is, I've got to move every day, just do something, whether it's walk, yoga, just do something. The days that you don't want to do it are the days you have to do it. You have to make that rule for yourself. And the more that you make that rule and the more you practice that, the more you beat adversity and you beat your own mind and you do the hard things, the more freedom you have because you are so much more confident and so much more capable of handling hard things when they come your way. And we don't practice that enough. We don't practice adversity. I mean, maybe because of, like throwing our kid brother down the stairs in a suitcase and leaving him there. I mean, he's
fine. He's got plenty of adversity.
I mean,
you should actually be thanking us, Cory.
Man,
yes.
I mean, I'm not sure he's going to go caving anytime soon. Actually,
For
Katie,
sure.
I was so tempted to send you like an Instagram video last night, but it had a snake and it was so funny. But I was like, oh my God, she won't sleep all night if I send this to her.
And I would be super mad.
It was this guy that was like, and the thing was like, no good. Clearly, like my phone must have tracked that I was looking up cliches because the Instagram thing was this guy, no good deed goes unpunished. And he grabbed this water snake and threw it out of the way from all the people. But then it landed on all these kayakers. It was so funny. It was so funny.
Ew, gross.
I'm just like, oh, I can't send her that. She'll lose.
No, thank you. See how far we've come? 5
know.
years ago, you would have sent me 20 different
I
snake
probably
reels.
would have intentionally looked them up to send them to you.
Yeah, your whole feed would have been full.
What is it about like wanting to get under your sibling's skin? What is that? These are the people that you're
I
like.
mean, we're pretty good about it now, but
No, I know, but I mean, like, what is that? Like, I watch my kids. Like, why do they always pick at each other? Ultimately, when and this is back from kind of my teaching days, but anytime you try to like make someone else feel uncomfortable or out of sorts or whatever is on the spectrum of bullying, right? It's really about gaining control over someone else's emotions.
yeah.
You're just really trying
and
to
it
get
also
control.
tends to be a mirror.
Well, right. I mean, like, and it usually comes from immaturity, like emotional immaturity.
Yeah.
And it comes from feeling very out of control in your own sense, right? Because like the only reason we try to control someone else is because we're afraid that we can't handle what's going to come out of this situation. Right. Which is again why if you tackle adversity a little bit every day, when real adversity comes, it's not this big surprise where you completely lose your shit and you don't know how to handle anything. So, I mean, bullying is ultimately just a way to make someone else feel bad or uncomfortable. And then you have control over their emotions, right? Like you're just trying to, and it's ultimately just a game. It's a game that kids play. So when you walk in and Uncle Bob that's what I meant by like considering the source. When you walk in and Uncle Bob has to say something about your appearance, I mean, let's look at Uncle Bob and his life and be like, do I really want to let that affect the way I feel about myself?
That's so true. It's like considering
Uncle Bob is probably 4 whiskeys deep and maybe not so healthy himself or whatever. I don't use that example because that just seems to be like, I know there's a lot of people that, and it's probably because I'm in the wellness industry that like, that's what people talk about till the holidays. They're like, I just hate going to whatever because every time I gain weight, my grandpa, will bring up that I gained weight or whatever. And so that's just what I hear a lot. I'm sure I'm just referring to that because it's what I know, but
yeah. Well, and poor Bob. We don't know who Bob is. If your name is Bob and you're listening, we're sorry. If you're an uncle.
I know, Bob. I don't know.
And take care of yourself. You might be overweight.
Cory, what's your, being divorced this year for you've been separated for a couple of years, but being divorced, like, how is your Christmas going to look this year? What does that look like for you?
Well, to be honest, we're still working it out. And it likely will be a split of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I think this year the boys will probably be with me on Christmas Eve until 10 a.m. on Christmas Day. So it gives us an opportunity to open presents and have a Christmas morning, and then they will.
Oh, so you kind of get both then?
Yeah, Christmas Eve it's nice. It's a little less stressful because there's less going on and there's less pressure to do anything, I feel like, on Christmas Eve.
Well, right, because our parents are gone. Like they're not here. So we don't spend Christmas Eve together generally. And we generally go to Dale's mom's. So Christmas Eve is really not spent to get you and I together anyway, and Steph's gone. And now you don't have in-laws to go to. So it really is just you, right? And the boys and Julia?
Yeah. My girlfriend will join us on Christmas Eve if that's what it ends up being. If I end up with the boys on Christmas Day, we're going to go to her house for a little while and hang out with her brother and sister and her mom. But I will also put a deadline on that, right? Just because I want the boys to also have some time at home, just kind of have a day off. We're a very scheduled family. Both my boys are involved in sports and we're always on the run. So that home time is valuable for us.
Yeah.
And, I've noticed that there is a real coming together between those two. We talk a little bit. I mean, they fight like cats and dogs. They are about 4.5 years apart, and the age gap does not prevent any type of adversity between the two or strife between the two. So, but what I have noticed over these last couple of years, like Steph said, through the divorce, is they really have become a team, and they really do have more of those tender moments than I ever noticed before. Could be because my radar's up more, or it could be because they're the ones that are having to go between two households, and they are different households when they go.
Yes. And also, I think take some credit for this because you've also created a stable household.
Yeah.
For them, right. Like they have some safety in. That's the other thing is, well, and maybe I'm going to put insert my foot into my mouth right now, but I've heard along the lines, which this could be something that people just say, that when your kids bicker or they're shitty at home, it's because you have a safe household and they can be that way at home. But when they go out in public, they're actually, fine humans. And you hear that from teachers and shit all the time. I don't know what that says about my own household. If my kids aren't fighting, it might mean that they are very scared.
I don't think it's that. I really don't.
But I think that there's something really actually kind of important in saying that when you provide a stable household, kids do have the freedom to push the boundaries and test the waters a little bit on what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and that kind of thing. And the environment that you've created, Cory, is they will sort of come together because they have to. I mean, I would imagine that your kids would never go to the other parents without the other one, especially for a holiday, right?
Not for a holiday, no. I mean, there certainly are situations. I mean,
well, they have to, right? But
I know, and stuff.
Dominic is to me, is very protective of Mason.
He is. He's the oldest. He's protective. Period. Yeah. I mean, we could just put a period at the end of that for sure.
Yeah. And I think that comes too with the bigger age gap. Because I would say that, I mean, Cory, you and I are 8.5 years apart, and I was pretty protective of you. Because I think what happens when there's a great big age gap is that as the older one, you realize how little and fragile a baby, or, because you remember when someone was a baby, right? And you just remember when they were so little. And then on top of it, I think too, anytime you're going through an emotional, a divorce, kids the older one just naturally in the house, because for when mom and dad got divorced, Katie was really the oldest because I was away at college. So I was gone. Right. So she kind of had to take over that role in a sense.
Yeah, but I'm done now. Just so we're clear.
Right. You're on your own now.
Just so we're clear.
If we hadn't taught you anything by now. Years. No.
You are on your own. You hit 40. We got you a trip. You're on your own.
You're good. Yeah, you're good. We're turning you loose. I don't know. I mean, I've heard there's a lot of different things that kids, it's true, Katie, that they say that they'll let loose, but I've heard that more in regard to their own emotional, if they come home from school and they held their shit together all day at school when they had a really bad day and they come home and they're just crabby and they're angry and they're I don't know that necessarily has to do with the relationship between siblings. I've heard it more in regard to they keep it together at school because it's they have to, but then they get home and if they had a really bad day, they might just completely melt down and they might lose it. And they're not trying to be an asshole. They just,
well, and it manifests in lots of different ways, right?
Right.
As adults, you'd think that when we have bad days, we would like emotionally, intelligently process that. I think I come home and, I'm a dick too. But yeah, I mean, just the way it manifests, I think it's different for all kids. But that's a different story too about we expect these kids to keep their shit together for 8 hours a day and not have room or space to feel. And then again, this is the same thing. Again, if we're talking about holidays and stuff too, we expect these kids to also, when they're little, leave toys behind that they just fucking opened so they can go to church and then go to Aunt Carol's and then, watch that whole shit show, end up and then come back and it's a shit show and then the toy is, lost its shine already.
You guys probably don't remember this. We had Christmas at Aunt Mary's one time. And I think I have a cousin that's like a year older than me, but we were in the same grade and whatever. So anyway, she got a Barbie doll. We were probably, God, I don't know. We were probably like 6 or 7, maybe. She got a Barbie doll and I got something, whatever. It was not a Barbie doll. Oh my God. Like talk about yes, there is a lot of stress that comes with that. And I felt like looking back at it, like I feel bad now because whoever got me because we always traded names, I think. And whoever got me, I was probably just terrible about it. But like, there is just so much. So it's like, even for kids, the stress, like it's probably not as pre-holiday, right? It's not like they wake up in the morning and they start thinking about it because kids just don't have that attention span. But I mean, they may come home and there might be like some stress from all of that. And it's like, I'm not pointing that out to say that like you have to try to manage that ahead of time. That's not the case. Don't start calling people and telling them like, we need to make sure we match up gifts and all that, because some of that is good for kids. It is good for kids to learn. But your kid might throw a tantrum and you might have to that might just be part of what they do. Maybe you take them into another room and you try to help calm them down. You give them some time, you give them whatever it is.
You make them bite a bullet.
Right. Or tell them, hey, there are more ways to skin a cat. Maybe you'll get a different gift tomorrow.
This year, I'm not bringing green bean casserole. I'm bringing the bullet for kids to bite.
Seriously.
Okay, I know everybody's got like a day to get on to, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. It was exciting.
All right, bye.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of living authentically with me. Before you go, don't forget to connect with me on Instagram. Shoot me a message at Katie Rip. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode and connect with you further. And remember, if you want more details on today's episode or just want to explore more about designing your life unapologetically, head on over to my website at katierip.com. There you'll find all the juicy details and resources you need to keep the inspiration flowing. Lastly, if you'd like to join me on the show, whether it's to tell about your experience of designing your own life, to share your expertise, or if you'd like to participate in lifestyle coaching live on air, don't hesitate to reach out. Your story could inspire countless others on their own path to living authentically. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep living boldly, designing your life, and remember, #actually I can.